ahead, watch out and take good care. Blade of the Immortal is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. Samurai named Manji, hired by the orphan girl Rin to avenge the death of her parents. The film begins with Manji, a talented samurai, on the run with his crazy sister Maki, who was killed by Manji's husband some time ago. While he was drinking water from a river, a mysterious old woman appeared, asking if he regretted killing so many people, including Maki's husband. Maki suddenly disappears, forcing Manji to interrupt his conversation with the old woman and go looking for her. She is taken hostage by a group of bounty hunters who are pursuing her. Manji destroys the entire group after seriously injuring Maki. He was seriously injured, lost an arm, and hoped to die next to his sister's body. It turns out the mysterious old woman appears again, introducing herself as Yabikuni. Despite Manji's pleas to end his life, she injected him with sacred bloodworms to heal his wounds, even reattaching his hands and making him old and immortal. Death. 50 years later, Itoryu, a group of master swordsmen led by Anatsu Kagehisa, is determined to conquer all dojos or martial arts academies in the country. Refusing Itoryu's offer would result in the massacre of the dojo members. Kagehisa easily defeated Master Asano in a quick duel and kidnapped his wife, but warned his men not to touch Asano's daughter Rin, who was just a young girl. Rin wishes to learn fencing despite her family's disappointment. Left alone in grief, Rin vows to avenge her parents. Yabikuni appeared before her at her father's grave and suggested that she hire an immortal and talented samurai as her bodyguard. She is determined to go a long way to find him, but Manji initially does not want to work for her. He no longer wants to kill. However, he takes pity on Rin and agrees to escort her home. Along the way, they encountered an Itoryu member, Kurowa Sabato, who tortured and captured Rin's mother. He gave Rin some of his mother's hair and even showed off her severed head, which he carried on his shoulder. Rin is shocked when Sabato is also about to capture him. Manji appears and beats him. Sabato attempts to deal a fatal blow to Manji, but thanks to his abilities, Manji is able to heal himself, leaving Rin impressed. Manji agrees to train Rin and protect her until she can avenge her parents. Kagehisa discusses with Habaki, a government official, a deal to place Itoryu in the shogunate position and make him the head of the new martial arts academy. Later, he received news of Sabato's death and felt confused because he knew Rin was not good at taking down one of his best assassins. Meanwhile, Rin is sharpening Manji's knives and daggers in the town market when she notices a man using her father's sword. This man is Taito Magatsu, sent by Kagehisa to deal with Kurowa's murderers. Manji learned of his existence from Rin and quickly challenged Magatsu to a duel. Manji wins the battle, seriously injuring Magatsu. After mistaking Rin for Maki, Rin eventually learns that she reminds Manji of his deceased sister, although he refuses to say more about it. The injured Magatsu is treated at the Itoryu base and reports to Kagehisa that an immortal swordsman was hired as Rin's bodyguard. Rin and Manji go to a village and stop for a meal. Manji was reading the map of each dojo conquered by the Itoryu when another Itoryu swordsman, Aiku Shizuma, posing as a monk, approached him. He expressed that he wanted Manji to join him so they could defeat Kagehisa together. Manji refused the offer because his intuition told him that something was wrong. Enraged, Shizuma pulled out his sword and fought mercilessly. It turns out that Shizuma is also immortal for a longer period of time than Manji. He poisoned his sword to weaken the bloodworms and slow Manji's self-healing ability. However, Manji was determined to protect Rin despite his desire to end his own immortality, so he defeated Shizuma. Later, at the town market, Manji and Rin meet Maki, another member of the Itoryu. Although she had the upper hand, Maki could not bring herself to kill Manji even though she cut off his limbs. She wonders if Itoryu's motives are the right thing to do. Then she witnesses Rin protecting Manji despite not being as good as him. Maki decides not to end their lives and leaves. Even though it's slow, Manji can still recover. He scolded Rin for defending herself because she wasn't allowed to do that. He tells her to train alone because he has something to do that day, which is to visit Maki's grave. Rin wanders alone and then meets Kagehisa. She was surprised to see that he didn't attack her. He explains that he killed his father to avenge his grandfather. Kagehisa's grandfather was expelled from the dojo run by Rin's great-grandfather because he used an axe, considered a foreign weapon and not suitable for their fighting style. Back at Manji's crib, Rin doesn't tell him that he met Kagehisa and learned the truth about their ancestors. The next day, Rin and Manji encounter the Mugairyu, another clan of swordsmen, after witnessing one of their members, Shira, defeat another Ito-Ryu member. Shira takes them to Mugai-Ryu's hideout, where they meet the other members. They explain that they must stay hidden so that Ito-Ryu does not realize that they have two enemies, then ask Manji and Rin to join them to defeat Ito-Ryu together. Based on their spy disguising himself as an Ito-Ryu member, Kagehisa will visit Mount Takao. They plan to attack him on his way by splitting into two groups that would take different paths. Manji, Rin, and Shira are grouped together. On the way, they notice a mysterious figure resembling Kagehisa and prepare to attack him. Shira punched him in the face. It turned out to be a woman hired by Ito-Ryu. At the same time, other Ito-Ryu members appeared from behind the trees and realized that they were trapped. Manji and Shira fight the Ito-Ryu members until they are all defeated. Afterwards, Shira tried to harass the hired woman. Rin protects her, but Shira easily hurts her. Luckily, before Shira tried to do anything to Rin, Manji cut off one of his hands, allowing him to escape. Manji realizes that he cannot work with Mugai-Ryu, especially Shira, due to their different principles. Returning home, Manji treats Rin's wound and tells him her whole story. His superiors ordered him to assassinate several men, who turned out to be the ones who were supposed to expose his superiors' crimes. Believing he was working for the wrong purpose, Manji betrayed his superior and murdered him and his bodyguards. It turns out that one of his bodyguards is Maki's husband. His death affected her greatly, driving her crazy, and Manji later took care of her. He warns Rin that if she stands up for him again, he will stop working for her. Believing he is only causing trouble for Manji, Rin runs away the next day, continuing her quest for revenge alone while Manji stays outside. He was approached by other members of Mugai-Ryu who asked him where Shira was. He explained that he could no longer continue working with them. They explained that they must defeat Ito-Ryu because they faced the death penalty from the government. After realizing Rin was gone, Manji frantically chased after her. Meanwhile, Kagehisa arrives at Mount Takao and meets Ibane Kinsui, the leader of the Shinkito-Ryu. Although he was warmly welcomed, he quickly learned that they would not join him. Disappointed, he left, while his teammates back home celebrated his supposedly successful deal. It turns out that Habaki betrayed the Ito-Ryu by sending government swordsmen to capture Kagehisa and the Ito-Ryu clan. The entire Ito-Ryu clan is destroyed at their base, while Kagehisa, fleeing the army, meets Rin and pays her no attention as he is busy fighting government swordsmen. Rin had no choice but to follow him to ensure her own safety. Kagehisa and Rin reach the entire village with an army led by Habaki. Rin yells at the army for having no honor in attacking Kagehisa in an uneven battle and calls for the battle to be fair with a sword fight. Habaki orders his men to gag Rin. Luckily, Manji appears and defeats his attackers, although he doesn't understand why Rin doesn't take revenge on Kagehisa, and instead it seems like she's protecting him. Rin tells him that his mission now is to defeat anyone who dares to attack him. A battle occurs between Manji, Rin, and Kagehisa against Habaki and his men. Manji managed to survive despite being seriously injured and bleeding, while Kagehisa fought without any problems. During the fight, Shira arrives and kidnaps Rin, avenging Manji for cutting off her limbs. Manji emerges from the battle to see Shira again. He tricks Shira into giving up all her swords and daggers, but he hides a small shuriken that he uses to free Rin from Shira's bonds. He then pushed Shira to her death, falling off a cliff. Meanwhile, Maki also arrives at the battle scene and helps Kagehisa. She smelled gunpowder and positioned herself to prevent the bullets from hitting Kagehisa, thereby sacrificing herself. He continued fighting until only Habaki remained. Even though he was weak and bleeding a lot, Kagehisa still managed to cut Habaki's upper body. He later meets Manji and Rin again, thanking them for keeping him alive against Habaki's men. Now, Manji wants to continue fighting him properly, completing her mission of avenging Rin's parents. They fought mercilessly, but in the end Manji won. He deals the final killing blow to Rin so she can truly avenge her parents, but Rin hesitates, causing Kagehisa to counterattack her. Luckily, Manji positioned himself and took the hit. Rin quickly stabbed Kagehisa in the chest. After Kagehisa's last breath, Rin mourns Manji, who she thought was dying. She cried because he didn't keep his promise to die after her. It turns out that Manji is still alive even though he is seriously injured, and replies that she should call him brother, like Maki did. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Monk Comes Down the Mountain is the name of the movie, Please like and subscribe for every update. In a secluded Taoist temple, Anxia has been raised and trained since he was abandoned as a baby. One day, his master asks him to fight every other monk in the temple in order to decide who will leave, since they can't feed everyone anymore. Anxia defeats all his fellow monks with ease, but to his surprise, winning equals leaving because it means he's finally strong enough not to need training anymore. Besides, his master thinks it's time for Anxia to see what the real world is like. When Anxia finally makes it to the city, he's overwhelmed by it and quickly gets in trouble because he doesn't know how to cross the street. He uses his martial arts skills to avoid cars and eventually makes a bit of a show-off, earning him the admiration of the crowd. One of them even tossed him a coin, but it wasn't enough to buy food, and by night Antia was starving. When he sees Dr. Sui leaves the restaurant with a package of food, but Antia decides to steal it and Sui chases him around town on his bicycle. Eventually, they reach a river, where Antia jumps just in time, but Sui falls into the water. Antia didn't hesitate to help him, and Sui gave him food as a thank you. He also finds Anxia to be amusing and a pure soul, so he decides to take him back to his pharmacy to make him his apprentice. The doctor lives with his wife Mrs. Sui, who doesn't pay much attention to her husband and prefers to hang out with her brother-in-law. At least he doesn't complain about Anxia's presence and also loves it when Anxia entertains the couple with his antics during meals. Dr. Sui sells medicine in his pharmacy but also sees patients, and Anxia learns how to help him with both. His martial arts skills come in handy when it comes to distracting people in pain, especially crying kids. At the end of each day, Dr. Sui pays Anxia for his help, but half of his earnings go into buying love tonic from his brother Daorong, whose business isn't doing very well. One afternoon, Sui learns that Daorong has sold the shop for the value of a precious ring, which makes Sui furious because both their shops had been a family inheritance. Daorong doesn't care though, and he reminds Sui that he gave up monkhood for a woman, so he can't exactly talk. Dr. Sui leaves the shop in a huff, thus Anxia goes after him to ask for an explanation. It turned out to be Dr. Sui was a monk in the same temple as Antia, and one day, seeing her incredibly beautiful woman praying, he decided to follow her in order to get her noticed. Eventually, the woman became Mrs. Sui, and the monk gave up everything to become a doctor and devoted himself to caring for Mrs. Sui. The only reason Sui regularly buys tonic of love is to help his brother with his debts, but Daolong clearly doesn't mind the hard labor. Later that night, Antia hears strange noises and he climbs the ladder to peek into Sui's room and finds her couple left in bed. At the end of the examination, the doctor told his wife how worried he was about her brother's future, but he again refused to give him a single coin. He also assured Mr. Sui that he didn't have to worry about money because he had a lot of savings hidden in the back wall of his closet. The next day, Antia goes to buy more love tonics for Sui, but when he reaches the store, he hears sounds suggesting that Mr. Sui is having an affair with the doctor and his brother. Although he did not tell his doctor about it, he later confronted Mr. Sui, who simply told him not to get involved in his work. After some time, Mr. Daolong cries to Mr. Sui about his debt and his feelings about ending things, and Mr. Sui convinces him to cooperate. Daorong also gives her a powerful love tonic for her doctor. When he returned to her home, Mrs. Sui tries to steal savings from the wall, but is caught by the doctor. Mr. Sui believes that Antia has already told him everything, and he explains the situation with Daolong, but also vows that it is over and he will never see him again. Sometime later, in the middle of the night, Antia heard a scream. That's Mr. Sui. While her doctor tried to cheer her up, her doctor left her to die. While saying goodbye to her husband, Antia remembers the doctor's promise that he would never go hungry and accepts the responsibility of taking over the store. This allows him to find an empty tonic box, which makes him suspicious. After the doctor left, Mr. Daolong shamelessly went to pick up Mr. Sui himself. Antia warns her that he should respect the traditional 7 days of mourning, but they ignore her. Mr. Daolong and his wife, Sui, gets on the boat, and Mrs. Sui also finds it strange that Daolong is not sad. He then realizes that Daoron has poisoned the tonic, causing an argument, rocking the boat, and causing a leak. He is trapped and unable to escape, and just as he is about to drown, Antia appears and saves her. However, Antia is still angry at what they did to the doctor, and he only hesitates for a second before he misses the boat. Antia, overwhelmed with guilt, rushes to the temple to atone for his sins, but is discovered by the Luzon chief priest, who kneels before the Buddha and punishes here for murder. Following Buddhist tradition, Anxia spends 7 days on his knees repenting until he passes out, still unsure if what he did was right or wrong. When Anxia returns to the shop, he meets Zhao, who manages to get inside even though there was a lock on the door. He's a martial arts student that can use a special technique capable of destroying things through walls, and he's come to the shop to buy some medicine for his master, who he'll be fighting later. Anxia is very impressed by this mighty technique, and after doing the sale, he follows Zhao in secret to watch him fight his master Peng. Both men are very skilled, and Zhao manages to stay calm even when Peng taunts him, but in the end, Peng beats up his student anyway. Zhao refuses to give up and uses the special technique to land the final hit with props he finds in the area, but this also forces him to admit he's been practicing his master's technique behind his back. Peng doesn't mind and admits Zhao is more more skilled than his own son, so he'll be the one to inherit the leadership of his school. A happy Zhao starts making his way out, but he suddenly falls to the floor because Peng's waited for the right moment to betray him and kill him with his umbrella to get revenge for his stolen technique and keep his son as his heir. The next day, Peng's son Cheesy shows up at Anxia's shop to get some medicine for his father. He also has some meat that he'd love to cook properly, and Anxia accepts to share his kitchen in exchange for sharing the lunch. When the stew is ready, Cheesy only lets Anxia eat after he shares all the details about the fight. Things get weird when they realize the meat has a special poison that makes them hallucinate and their faces swell, and after Anxia sees the ghost of Mrs. Sui, he decides they should get drunk to forget. Since they don't have money, Anxia and Cheesy go to a temple to steal the donation box. Shiyu is the monk protecting the box and quickly gives them a lesson by beating them in a battle that ends with their heads against the ground. Cheesy runs away in fear, but Anxia stays to apologize and asks Shiyu to be his master, but Shiyu rejects him. The next morning, Cheesy tells Peng what happened. Peng soon realizes that it must be the same Shiyu he trained with in his youth who stole the technique from him. Their conversation is interrupted when Anthea delivers an order for medicine, and after quickly kicking him out, Pheasant explains to his father that Anthea told his father about the temple. Peng now believes that Anthea and Shiyu are working together. Meanwhile, Anthea packs his things, bids farewell to the doctor at the altar, and returns to the temple to beg Shiyu to train him again. Axia begins to prove himself useful by cleaning the area, but Shiyu takes the broom from him and shows him a special cleaning technique before giving it back. Just explaining how to clean requires concentration and practice. After some time, a girl approaches Anthea and tells him that his destiny foretells that he will meet the savior in the temple. His greatest wish is to have a child, and Anthea promises to help him find a way to do so. In the evening, Anthea goes to ask Rusong for advice, and the two meet in his head with their eyes closed. Luzon tells Anthea about a secret room in the temple where men take women and impregnate them, which he had locked away for his protection some time ago. Anxia isn't sure why Rusong finds this amusing, but when he opens his eyes, he finds the key to the room. Afterward, Anxia takes the girl to the room and finally realizes there's a space for them to get frisky. They have a wonderful night together, but the girl won't tell him his name because they can't see each other again. Later, after sharing this experience with Shiyu, Anxia asks him for his story in return. Shiyu explains that when his old master died, he passed his ape strike technique to him and made him the heir of the school because his son Peng wasn't good enough. Mr. Peng became angry and fought with Shiyu until he ran away from the school. These days, Shiyu is waiting for the right time to return something to its rightful owner. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by Pan, who has come to ask about his father's secret book. Shiyu explained that there had never been such a manual, but he would write everything he knew in a notebook and eventually give it to Peng so they could reconcile their differences. Pen grabs the manual and throws it into the kitchen fire, and Anthea runs to get it, but Pen quickly jumps in and punches him away. Shiyu does not want violence to occur, and he apologizes to Peng for running away all those years ago. Now he realizes he should have stayed here to learn together. He also wants to bow respectfully, but Pen is still angry and starts a fight. His kung fu techniques destroy many parts of the temple, and Shiyu has to push Anxia out of the way multiple times to stop Peng's attacks. Seeing Shiyu move quickly to take the students outside, Peng gave up the fight and left the temple, but as soon as the door closed, he realized that he was only pretending to be revealed and grabbed his special technique through the wall. The statue explodes and small pieces chase Shiyu. Shiyu grabs a broom and uses its power to create a tornado of leaves that acts as a shield. Peng thought he had won and returned home to investigate, so Shio pounced on him and resumed the fight. When Pen tries to use his special move again, she notices that the full moon is shining and uses its energy to control the water in the well and push back the enemy. However, Pen's attack is not completely repulsed. Instead, the beam splits in two and hits both men at the same time. Pen takes the opportunity to escape, but he passes out as soon as he gets home. Cheesy hurriedly searched for medicine in the drawer and found a gun next to it. Now caring for his father, he is haunted by memories of his gun. Meanwhile, Anthea finally convinces Shiyu to teach him the technique, but for now, they start with the theory behind the forces of nature. In her gratitude, Anthea reveals that he saved her notebook from the fire and returns it to Shiyu. Later, as Anthea was lying in bed, he heard several gunshots echoing in the temple and ran outside, only to find that Shio had been shot. Dying, Shiyu wants to meet someone named Chao one last time and give him the note, but Anxia does not know who it is and takes Shiyu to see Rusong instead. The monk teaches Shiyu that this is the result of karma. Shiyu finally understands how that cycle has come full circle, sees his friend Cha in his heart, and the soul leaves in peace. Meanwhile, Peng wakes up to discover it was his son that shot Shiyu. A few days later, Anxia goes to the city because he's learned Cha has become a performer at the local theater. After the show is over, Anxia tells Cha what happened, but even when Cha visits the temple and sees the bloodstained clothes, he refuses to believe it, especially since Shiyu never took students before. Anxia shares more details to prove his story, and in return, Cha explains he had met Shiyu before they joined the kung fu school. The two of them had been in the army together, and back then Cha had been just a performer going through withdrawal. When the first battle began, he ran away in fear, but Shio followed him and helped him stay sane during the war. Cha wants to avenge his friend's death, and Anthea tells him that it was probably Penn who killed him. Cha needs to finish one more show, but he shows up on stage only to cancel the show. This infuriated Police Commissioner Liren, who had paid extra money to buy a good seat for his girlfriend, and decided to send his men to avenge this humiliation. It was incredibly easy for Cha to take down a large group of policemen, and when Liren tried to shoot him, Cha moved fast enough to avoid the bullets and defeat him. The next day, Liren contacts Penn to take revenge together. Liren pretends to arrest Peng and calls Cha, telling him that the person who killed Shiyu has been caught and that Cha should come tomorrow when he will be transferred to the prison. Cha accepts this, and Penn and Liren have their men prepared to set a trap. At night, Cha and Anthea perform a special ceremony to bless Cha's spear and Shiyu's bloody shirt. Cha said that after the two had trained in nature for years, Shiyu told Cha that it was time for him to leave the cave and return to the stage, because life should be a balance between nature and pleasure. Cha explained that he intends to live through these words. The next day, Liren and Kizzy remain in the car with Penn as their men continue to ambush them, but Cha and Anthea easily work together and defeat them all within seconds. Cha then approaches the car and challenges Peng to a one-on-one duel. The duel begins with the two men fighting each other in her mind space. Although their abilities are quite similar, Penn tricks one of his men into attacking Cha with his eyes closed, injuring his arm. This is not enough to stop Shiyu, and Shiyu jumps very high and uses the sunlight for a special attack with his spear, severely injuring Peng and pinning him against a tree. Cha asks if he really killed Peng, and Peng replies that he did it to protect his son. Suddenly, Cheesy appeared with a gun and confessed that it was him, so Anxia hit him several times, took the gun away, and thought of shooting him. Cheesy points out that Shiyu saw him but never said his name, proving that he wanted to end this cycle of revenge. These words prompt Peng to pick up Cha's spear and offer his life in exchange for his son's, so that things can end and a new generation can start over without hating the past. That's when Liren shoots Cha in the leg before fleeing in his car, causing Anthea and Kiji to chase him. Anthea is unable to stop the car with a jump, but when Liren takes a wrong turn, he spots Cha with a spear and uses it to send the car flying into the water, causing it to explode. Anxia then returns to the mountains with Shiyu and completes his training there, as he has finally experienced both good and evil in his life. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Kung Fu Jungle is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe for every update. In the opening scene, a martial arts expert named M.O. enters a police station. His face was covered in bruises and cuts, which alarmed police officers. He asks what happened, and he replies that he just killed someone. Officers immediately called higher-ups and arrested him. It turns out that M.O. was fighting an opponent in the ring and unintentionally killed him during the fight. M.O. knew what he was doing was wrong, even if it was an accident. There he turned himself in. The scene begins 3 years later. A police officer named Ruku is called to investigate the murder scene. She is informed that the deceased was a boxer. At first glance, a forensic pathologist notices broken ribs and limbs, as well as blood clots around the eye. Investigator Luck deduces that the victim must have been tortured for several days to sustain such severe injuries. However, due to the nature of the injuries, doctors believe the victim probably got into an altercation with someone more experienced. They also notice a strange dagger lying at the crime scene. Mr. M.O. has been living peacefully for 3 years somewhere behind bars. He is often at the mercy of groups of prisoners. With his skills, M.O. can easily teach children lessons, but he avoids arguments. News of the death was broadcast on television and caught Mo's attention. He watched the show in shock, as if he knew something about the murders. Immediately after, he ran up to the security guard and asked him to call Detective Luck. The guard sarcastically asks what else he wants. M.O. tries to explain that he knows something about the recent murders, but is overruled. He then begins an altercation with a group of prisoners. The group's leader managed to hit him in the head with a metal plate, but M.O. evaded his second attack and broke both of his arms. They are now surrounded by police and arrested. The prison warden knows that M.O. is not normally a violent person, so he called Detective Luck and arranged a meeting between the two. M.O. finally meets them, and he claims that the dead were former friends whom he had once fought and defeated. Due to the nature of the murder, M.O. is convinced that the culprit is about to commit murder. He's not looking for revenge or money. He just wants to fight the best kung fu warriors who are fair and honest. When asked why he was so sure, M.O. didn't give a definitive answer, but insisted that if he were released, he could help find the killer. Investigators suspect he may have something in mind to get out of prison. As they were about to leave, Mo named 7 people, explaining that one of them would be his next victim. The name comes from the fighters he fought and defeated over the years. Detective Ruku does not believe his story, but still asks his junior to collect information on all 7 people. We then see the murderer sharpening his dagger and writing King Lee's name on the wall. Li Wang is one of the people Mo mentioned earlier. He works at a museum and is currently working on a giant human bone sculpture. When he is alone in the showroom, the killer suddenly appears on top of the skull and shows his face for the first time. He introduces himself as Yu Sao and challenges King Yi to a battle. They fight each other on the top of the skeleton when King Yi notices that Yu Sao's legs are different lengths. He is wearing a shoe with a bigger sole to balance himself. They fight using only their legs, but still show great expertise. Finally, Yu Sao breaks his opponent's leg by putting it between him. After a few seconds, he walked away, leaving King Yi's body behind. Back at the police station, the detective examines the profiles of the 7 names provided by Mo, but finds no similarities among them. They all live a simple life in different parts of the city. However, her past in Mo seems interesting to her. It is revealed that he founded a famous martial arts club and was a teacher before being imprisoned. These days the club has thousands of supporters. He was also employed by the Hong Kong police force as a martial arts instructor. While the investigators are talking, he learns of King Yi's death. Detective Ruku is shocked that Mo's prediction came true. The next day, Mo is temporarily released in police custody. By investigating a series of murders, Mo realizes that the killer targets his victims through martial arts practice. Since he first killed a boxer who used his hands, and then killed King Lee who fought using his feet, his next target will probably be someone who does wrestling. Mo knows one of the wrestlers among the remaining 6, but Yu Sao goes to the man before the police. When police arrived at the scene, they saw the wrestler's body thrown out the window. He also has a similar dagger stabbed to his arm. Suddenly, Mo looks at the roof of another building and sees Yu Sao. His evil smile makes him realize that he is the murderer. Mo immediately follows the man while the police do the same. A few minutes into the chase, Yu Sao takes a leap to the top of a neighboring building and disappears, leaving Mo and the police ashamed that they couldn't catch him. Taking the opportunity, Mo also escapes from police custody. The next day, he goes to his hometown Foshan where he meets his wife Shening. They are happy to be reunited after 3 years. She takes him home and makes him wear a sacred band on his wrist. It is supposed to make him fight only for self-defense and protect him from making the same mistake that got him imprisoned. At night, Mo finds the killer's dagger in one of the boxes with his belongings. Shening reveals that a few months ago, a limping man came to their martial arts school and asked her to keep the dagger. She thinks that the town's historian might know what the symbol in the dagger means, and the two decide to go to him the next day. Then, a flashback shows us Yu Sao with his late wife who had cancer. She was the only person in the world who loved and accepted him as he is. While she was dying, he practiced martial arts day and night to avoid thinking about her inevitable death. Back in the present, Mo and Xianing visit a historian to find out more about the dagger. It is revealed that the symbol there is called Eve Swallow. Under the Qing dynasty, it was awarded to those who lost in martial arts battles. As the couple is talking about Yu Sao, a man nearby overhears them and claims to know Yu Sao. A few years ago, Yu Sao was living in a nearby town with his wife, who was suffering from cancer. Yu Sao was born with a disability in which one leg was shorter than the other. Nevertheless, through his hard work and dedication, he managed to master the art of martial arts. Mo then calls Detective Ruku and he says he has a lead. The police soon come to town to pick him up and head to the murderer's hometown. They arrive at Yu Sao's house, but he has already left. The landlady claims she has never seen Yu Sao doing anything other than training. She also rubbed her face with salt until it bled to make her skin thicker and better able to withstand beatings longer. Later, the police discover the writing on the wall. He says he has lost everything in his life and his only motivation now is to fight the best fighters and become number one. That's why he has killed some of the best fighters and plans to kill many more. Meanwhile, Yu Sao sets his sights on his next target, a former martial artist and actor. He now challenges them to a duel with swords. After a long and fierce battle, Yusao slit the man's throat and killed him. When a new death occurs, Detective Ruku is pressured by higher-ups to solve cases faster. She tells Imo to do the same, but he seems to be hiding something from them. Once, while in prison, Imo received a letter from Yusao that vaguely mentioned a challenge. At the time, Imo didn't know what it meant, but he now realized that he was the person Yusao least wanted to fight. Detective Ruku also begins to suspect Imo and requests the surveillance camera footage of all his meetings with outsiders at the prison. At night, Imo sits alone in his room and recalls the day before his first murder. Yusao had sent him a letter asking him to watch the news. The next day, the police learn Yusao's current address and dispatch a SWAT team to the house. They search it but find no one inside. When they were about to leave, they realized that his wife's remains were still there. Detective Luck orders the transfer and arranges for the police to hide Yusao until he returns home. The next morning, he is seen approaching the house on a boat. Flashbacks show that his wife was in big trouble before her death. Yusao could no longer see her in this state and mercilessly strangled her to death. Now the police have spotted him and are cautiously waiting for him to approach them so they can attack them all at once. However, Yusao notices the neighborhood guard dog and accidentally turns his back on it. Before anyone knows where he went, he disappears. Somewhere else, an officer investigating the CCTV footage from the prison finds out that Yusao had come to meet Imo while he was in prison. Detective Luck points her gun at him, believing that the killings were his and Yusao's plan to get him out of the prison. Meanwhile, Shining has set off to look for Yusao on her own. Imo swiftly gets hold of the gun from Detective Luck and escapes to pursue Yusao and his wife. At the same time, Shining and Yusao meet inside his house. She hands him his wife's ashes, asking him to leave her husband alone. However, Yusao believes that if he kills her, Imo will be even stronger. They get into a fight and Shining, who is also a trained fighter, gives him tough competition. But eventually, he stabs her in the arm and runs away. Imo arrives to see his wife on the floor and calls for help. He noticed Yusao in front of the house and jumped towards him. They land on a boat and a container of ashes breaks. While struggling, he falls into the river. Yusao manages to get on another boat and drive off. He eventually crashes a boat with Detective Ruku and a police officer, but disappears shortly afterward. Imo also escapes after arranging the rescue of his wife. He calls Detective Luck and tells her that when he first received her Yusao letter, he thought he was just a fan. Little did he know that Yusao would use his knowledge to kill people. Imo also knew that Yusao was targeting Xianing, so if he had told the police everything from the beginning, the police wouldn't have needed his help. Therefore, he kept the secret in order to get himself out of prison and save his wife. Imo knows who Yusao's next target is. Using this information, he manages to find Yusao in the middle of the highway on his way to his target's house. Even though Imo has the chance to run him over, he doesn't because he wants to fight him. Yusao is happy that his wish has finally come true. The two respect each other as opponents, join hands, and begin a fight in the middle of the road. They are approximately equal in strength and skill and cannot hurt each other for the first few minutes. But later, when Yusao gets tired, Imo throws him out onto the street, where Yusao is almost run over by a car. Then they grab bamboo sticks and fight. Eventually, the bamboo stick breaks and a fist fight breaks out again. Suddenly, Imo gets pinned under a car and gets dragged further. It's enough to knock him out. Taking the opportunity, Yusao drags him to the other side of the road. He is about to kill Imo, but Detective Luck arrives at the right time and shoots him dead. In the end, Imo is taken to the hospital. 3 months after the incident, he is in prison again. Detective Luck comes for a visit and informs him that he is being bailed shortly. In the last scene, we see Imo and Shining taking pictures with the students from their school of martial arts. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Halo is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. In the 26th century, a group of alien races gathered to form a military alliance called the Covenant. They believed that the superweapon world known as Halo will lead the way to salvation and declare humanity confronting their gods, thus beginning a genocidal campaign to kill all humans. In 2552, in the human colony of Madrigal, Quan and her friends wandered the forest looking for a plant to abandon. Suddenly, Quan hears a noise and leaves the group behind to investigate, only to discover that a ship has docked nearby and lights are glowing inside a cave. Terrified, she ran to her friends to tell them to come back, but the enemy attacked first and started killing them. The group began to run away as fast as they could in their current state, but the fire continued to surround them, killing them one by one. Quan tried to hide and fired flares to alert the people of the insurgent outpost, who immediately rushed to their defensive positions and prepared to fight. Quan then continued running and entered the outpost just before it closed. She told her father that the attackers were not regular Marines, but he did not listen and sent her to hide with other civilians when the enemy approached the outpost and opened fire. The front door explodes and a group of aliens enter and begin killing everyone in sight, not even caring about primitive human weapons. People are dying all over the outpost and Quan can no longer keep watch, so she goes looking for her father. This saved his life when an alien soon opened the shelter door and shot everyone inside. Just then, a flying ship arrives and drops the Spartans, an army of genetically engineered super soldiers. The Spartans immediately began fighting the aliens with their advanced armor and weapons, proving to be far superior. Quan continues to flee the explosions and tries to hide in a trailer, but an alien finds her anyway. Luckily, Master Chief quickly shot and killed the alien from afar. Once the remaining aliens are contained, the Spartans shoot them with a shot, ending the war. Quan prepares to find her father, but suddenly an alien reveals that he is still alive and attacks her. Her father immediately came to help her, but the alien killed him with a blade. Master Chief quickly intervened to destroy the aliens before reporting. 20 elite alien warriors and 150 civilians were killed, leaving only Quan as the sole survivor. Next, the Spartans set out to search for enemy ships. Quan mourns her father, but when she realizes that she is left alone, she decides to follow them. The Spartans entered the cave that Quan had seen earlier, unaware that an alien was following them, and they discovered that the Covenant were there to search for something. Master Chief finds a relic that the aliens left on the wall, and when he touches it, the entire cave lights up and he sees an image of a family having a picnic while a white dog runs around. At this moment, the Chief's partner snatched the relic from his hand and the illusion ended. Suddenly, they see the remaining alien running away and chase them, but the alien turns invisible and sneaks away without being detected. The alien manages to escape within seconds and runs past Quan, taking her down before reaching his ship and taking off. Then at UNSC, or the United Nations Space Command, Dr. Halsey convinces her boss, Admiral Parangoski, to let her study the relic instead of storing it away. On the way out, Parangoski noticed Halsey was still working on a project that was supposed to be on hold and told her to get rid of it. Halsey enters a room that reveals a box with a strange body inside, but she doesn't want to end it. Meanwhile, at the Covenant Command Center, the Hierarch visits Makee, the only person in their ranks whom they have named Blessed. She predicted the location of the relic and was shocked to learn that there was someone else besides her who could activate it. Returning to Quan, she awakens and is frightened to discover she is on a Spartan ship. A hologram of Dr. Miranda appears asking Quan for help. She wants her to record a video explaining to the other colonies about the threat of the Covenant. This way they will stop fighting the UNSC, and instead all humans can fight the aliens together. However, after spending her life fighting government propaganda, Quan refuses to participate unless the government agrees to release her colony. Master Chief then feeds Quan and learns that they have met before. It was him who killed her mother. The conversation was interrupted when he received a text message saying that Quan needed to be eliminated, and he was so upset that he decided to turn off the security cameras. Parangoski is basically angry, so Halsey explains that the relic apparently gave Master Chief his memories and emotions back. To control things, she reduced the oxygen level to 0 in the ship to kill Quan, but only had 40% left in the Master Chief suit. This was enough for him to keep moving and open the ship's planks, allowing Quan to survive. Parangoski would tolerate no more non-cooperation and ordered the Marines to blow up the ship as soon as it approached. On the ship, Quan took a gun and threatened Master Chief, thinking he was the one who tried to kill her. To gain her trust, he took off his helmet and revealed his face, revealing his name to be John. Quan agrees to work together and shoots the ship's AI to switch it to manual mode so John can control it, but unfortunately a cannon hits them first and the ship falls to the ground. Seeing all the soldiers chasing him, John decided to touch the relic again. The image shows him his family and his younger self painting the relic. The relic will then send a wave of energy through the base, causing it to lose all power and disabling all weapons. However, the ship gains more power so John and Quan have to flee. A flashback then shows John 22 years ago when he was still in training. He sneaks out in the middle of the night and meets Soren, who is shocked that his friend suddenly pointed a gun at him. John doesn't want to escape anymore and reminds Soren that they have to follow the rules, but Soren talks about following their dreams and how this place is brainwashing them. He also reminds John that he lost his arm due to the experiment. John decided to give him 5 minutes to escape, but still refused to leave. Back in the present, Quan is shocked to see lights around the ship, and John explains that they use a special method of travel called slipspace. They eventually find themselves in the middle of an asteroid field, so John uses quick reflexes to move around them and avoid any damage. Upon leaving the asteroid field, they find a hidden space station called the Outlaw Rubble. The locals immediately pulled out their guns and tried to block John's path with a car, but he just chased him away. At that time, the station chief told them to put down their weapons. It turns out to be the older Soren, who warmly welcomes John and informs him that there is a bounty on Quan's head. Meanwhile, UNSC. There was a special meeting to discuss the situation. They want John fired, but Halsey goes against Parangoski's wishes and reveals that she has a new program called Cortana. This is the next step in human evolution and could overwrite the Spartans' consciousness and replace it with AI, making them easier to control. Under pressure from his superiors, Parangoski had no choice but to accept a trial run of Cortana. Back in Madrigal, the politician Grath kills all the rebels with ties to Quan's father. When a drone passes by, it also shoots it so Quan can no longer track it. She and John then show Soren the relic, but when Soren touches it, nothing happens. He decides to introduce them to Reth, a hermit who was once held captive by the Covenant. When he saw the relic, he realized it was important to the Covenant religion and explained that they were searching the galaxy for other pieces. When he touched it, nothing happened because only the Blessed One could activate it, so he threw it at John, who caught it with his hand. The relic immediately glows in the form of a ring and emits a wave of energy, causing John to have another flashback in which he sees his mother's corpse. When John comes out, Reth screams that the ring is Halo, a super weapon that the aliens want to use to destroy humanity. Reth believes that John must destroy the monument and die to save them all. Troubled by this revelation, John decides that he needs the help of UNSC in dealing with this dangerous weapon, so he asked Soren to take care of Quan and then boarded his ship. Moments later, he arrived at the base and was immediately captured while Halsey took the relic for research. Then another flashback shows the planet Oban, a human colony specializing in waste recovery. While everyone was working, two children ran away to read stories together. They see the characters sharing a kiss and decide to try it, but they are stopped by the guards, who chase them until they catch the boy and beat him to death. They also begin to hurt the girl, but soon the Covenant aliens arrive. After pushing the guard away, they took the girl with them. In the present, this girl has become Mei Qi, and she informs the Covenant hierarchs that she is going to find the relic and John himself. Returning to Halsey, she finally awakens the body she hid in the lab, which is a clone of herself. After sharing a very existential conversation to confirm that the clone's brain is in good shape, Halsey takes John to the lab and convinces him to follow a special procedure to be able to return battlefield. They then stuck a needle into the clone's eye to remove its brain, which was then implanted into John's head while the clone was vaporized. Once the procedure is complete, Cortana finally appears as a hologram representing the AI. Her future mission is to fully integrate with John to optimize his physical and mental performance, but for now, Halsey has restricted his access because she wants to use him to check the relic first. When John woke up, he didn't like the idea of a voice speaking in his head, but they continued examining the relic. As soon as John touches it, it activates and shows him other memories of his childhood, but when he is connected like this, Cortana cannot access his vision net. John then tries to search the database to find the location of his memories, and Cortana tries to guide him, but no name awakens emotions in him like the relic does. Cortana reminds him that his emotion regulator prevents him from feeling things, so John decides to remove it. When Cortana tries to warn Halsey about this, the doctor tells Cortana to guide John so he can see her as a friend and not a spy. Following Cortana's instructions, John used a knife to successfully remove the regulator without knowing that his teammate Kai was secretly watching him. After that, John travels around to experience the world and art with real emotions, aiming for change. Seeing a dog, he remembered the relic, so he ran to the base to touch it again, and this time he saw his son drawing the relic over and over again, making his father angry. He also drew a second artifact, claiming that these two relics belonged to each other. His father forced him to bury something, and when John returned to the present, he was desperate to find it. He remembers seeing rings of ice around his planet, and Cortana discovers in the database that he came from Eridanus 2, which was left uninhabited after a cargo ship carried a virus. Wipe out the population. When Halsey found him, he told her everything and they agreed to travel together to Eridanus 2 to find answers. Meanwhile, a patrol ship observed a Covenant starship appear near them, but surprisingly, it did not attack. They established contact and a desperate woman asks for help, claiming that she escaped her planet when it was attacked by the Covenant. A group of soldiers board the ship to rescue her, but she turns out to be Mei Qi, who launches an ambush by alien worms that instantly kills all the soldiers. She approached the leader to question him, but he refused to talk, so she killed him with the gun in her fingernail. The soldiers' ship had nothing useful, so Mei Qi decided to go to Madrigal. In Rubble, Quan sees news that Grath is taking over her home planet, so she asks Soren to let her go and fight, but Soren refuses. Later, Soren discovers Quan is trying to steal one of her ships, so she makes a new offer. If he takes her back to Madrigal, she will pay him handsomely in her family's money. Soren accepts and they leave on his ship. Back at base, Kai decides to follow John's lead and remove his emotion regulator. Feeling different, she also decided to dye her hair. Later, Kai and the rest of John's team are called by Miranda, who wants to examine the relic while Halsey is away. But no matter who touches it, nothing happens. Finally, Halsey and John arrived at Eridanus 2 and found his childhood home. John immediately started digging and found only a box containing his drawings. He then enters the house and asks Cortana to use her memories to recreate what the place looked like. As he walked around, his memories came back more and more. He saw his child drawing a lot and found a giant metal structure. The drawing depicts an underground cave that young John enters with his dog. There, the child touched something on the wall that made the cave shake, so he ran away. The next image shows Halsey coming to meet John. Back in the present, John asks Halsey why she was there, but she says the trauma has probably blurred her memories. John then announced that he remembered where the second object was. They enter the desert and enter the old cave, where they find the remains trapped in the wall. Meanwhile, Soren and Quan go to Madrigal, where they find wanted posters of her head. They attend her father's memorial service, and Quan talks to her father's second-in-command, only to learn that the revolution is over. People were scared, so they just followed Grath's lead. Quan panics and calls everyone cowards, which attracts the attention of the guards. When everyone panicked and was beaten, Soren took Quan back to his ship, but unfortunately he was captured by the guards. Quan convinces Soren to help her find his aunt, who will have the money to buy back his ship. As they pass through the market, the duo is attacked by locals, but Soren immediately defends himself and starts shooting them down. Before things get out of control, Quan's aunt shows up, so Quan stays with her while Soren goes to check on his ship. Unfortunately, a merchant informed him that the ship had been stripped of parts, so Soren stole his bike. Returning to Quan, she learns from her aunt that there is no more money because her father spent it all on the revolution. The aunt said that her father died because of a lie and told a story. Years before the war, her father visited a group in the desert called the Mystics. When he returned, his behavior was different and he was certain that his goal was to free Madrigal. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by an assassin sent by Grath, who promptly kills the aunt. Before he can kill Quan, Soren arrives and opens fire, but the wounded assassin escapes by jumping out the window. But the duo get on their motorcycle and ride away. Finally, Soren reaches the desert, but the bike is broken. Soren handcuffed Quan to the motorcycle and left to find an alternative solution. However, Quan used a rock to hit the motorcycle and freed herself. Later, when Soren returned in a jeep, he found the bike alone. Suddenly, Quan revealed that she was hiding under the sand and suddenly attacked him from behind to knock him out. Another flashback then shows young Halsey visiting a special school facility in Eridanus 2. She saw little John save a child from falling by grabbing his ankle, which was very impressive. It is later revealed that her husband is Captain Jacob, meaning Miranda is their daughter. In the present day, Miranda arrives at Eridanus 2, where Halsey has established a base to mine relics from the rock. Jacob took him to the cave, where Halsey asked John to stay away from this relic because it was much stronger than the first one. He left the cave and discovered how much Kai had changed, immediately guessing what she had done. Kai has no regrets, but John says she's not fit to fight and knocks her to the ground. The group then tries to penetrate the rock with lasers, but this causes a sound wave that causes everyone to run away in unbearable pain. This wave was so strong that it reached Mei-Ki, located in Madrigal Cave. She announces that she now knows the location of the second relic. Back in the cave, the protective barrier around the second relic was finally breached. As everyone prepares to transport the relic, John ignores Halsey's orders and touches it, causing him to recall memories of Halsey kidnapping him from his home to take him to the Spartan program. Halsey heard John scream and went to him, so she took the opportunity to demand answers. When Halsey says they can talk after getting the relic, an angry John tries to attack her, so Cortana turns off his neural bridge to knock him out. When John awakens, he discovers that they are under attack by a Covenant starship, which quickly opens fire and causes the team to lose their best ship. Instead, they will have to use Miranda's ship, and while the scientists evaluate, Miranda and Halsey run to avoid the explosion and help them get on the ship. The Spartans leave to fight the aliens, who are now invading the camp. A brutal battle begins as both sides use all kinds of advanced technology and lose many people in the process. Witnessing all this death causes Kai to freeze, making her an easy target for the pack. John wanted to save her, so he jumped on the alien car, causing it to crash. He then continued to fight the aliens directly, defeating them with unusual fury. Because John was distracted by this, an alien gained access to the relic and the main Covenant ship took it away. Before leaving, they dropped Mei-Ki on the ground, where she pretended to be a freed hostage. Afterwards, Kai and Mei-Ki were taken to the infirmary and John decided to lock Halsey in the lab. He then activates the decontamination system, which gives Halsey a lot of radiation. As the doctor begs for his life, John tells Cortana to stop it, but she cannot access the system. At the last second, John John frees hastily and reveals that it was a test to learn Cortana's limits. Later, Mei-Qi told the doctors that she had been kidnapped by the Covenant as a child, but refused to say more unless she could talk to John. The higher-ups allowed John to meet with Mei-Qi, who explained that the Covenant wanted a second relic and were hiding the first relic in the Aspero star system. John wants to know why he should trust her, so Mei-Qi explains that she is a blessed, like him. This upset John so much that he left the room. While Jacob tasks his team with monitoring the Aspero system, which has never been explored before, Parangoski asks Halsey to give him a full report on Cortana and the clones, in hopes of making her the scapegoat. John arrived and continued the interrogation, which Parangoski allowed on the condition that she talk. Halsey explains that she created the Spartan program to protect humanity, but the augmentation requires children to be active. Since none of the parents would accept this, she kidnapped the children and replaced them with clones, who eventually died from an undiagnosed seizure disorder. Halsey claims that only she knows how to protect Jacob and Parangoski, but the conversation is also overheard by Miranda, who now considers her mother a monster. John angrily leaves the room and asks Miranda to confirm whether Mei-Qi can actually interact with the relic. He also tells Cortana that he will try to get rid of her. He then visits Kai to share the truth with her and tells her to get better because he will need her. Meanwhile, Halsey goes to see Parangoski, who informs her that she has left the project and that Miranda will return to her job before kicking her out of the security team. As Miranda begins to examine Mei-Qi, John begins to feel worried and runs to ask the computer to check. Suddenly, he saw Quan disappear as the computer informed him that John needed to see a doctor urgently. Later, when Miranda tries to take over her mother's lab, the computer denies her access and only displays a message from Halsey asking her to meet. Miranda comes up to her and calls her a monster, so Halsey apologizes for being an absent mother. This shocked Miranda so much that she left without saying a word, but it was later revealed that Halsey had taken action. She used a special contact lens to get a copy of Miranda's retina and regained access to the Spartan program. When Miranda returns to the lab, she has access to the computer and test results show that John and Mei-Qi share a unique genetic code, making them 2 in a billion. John then ran to Mei-Qi's house and said they couldn't find anything at the place she mentioned. John begins to lose his mind and Mei-Qi explains that touching the relic makes him sick. The Covenant had other, less powerful stones that also made her sick, but after much training, she learned to control them and the stones became her servants. If John allowed him access to the relic, it could help him achieve peace. When Halsey secretly regains access to Cortana, John convinces Miranda to let him touch the relic again to test Mei-Qi's curse. In his room, Mei-Qi sensed something bad was about to happen and was caught off guard. However, when John touched the relic, he and Mei-Qi began to have conflicts. John's mind is flooded with disturbing memories until suddenly he finds himself in a mountain field with Mei-Qi, and doctors notice that their vital signs are completely in sync. John notices that they are inside the Halo Ring, but when he touches Mei-Qi, the vision ends. Returning to Madrigal, Quan crosses the desert in a jeep to remember her family. She eventually encountered a sandstorm, but she continued until she saw a strange shadow. She left the car to make contact, but was suddenly knocked unconscious. When she awakens, she finds herself among the mystics and meets Chief Desiderata, who refuses to show her what her father saw because she is not ready. However, Quan changed her mind when she shared everything she had gone through to be here. Desiderata explains that Quan's ancestors discovered a fuel in the desert that now powers the planet and introduces him to a strange being who reveals his true purpose. Desiderata then took the fire containing this fuel and placed it in a bowl to become water for Quan to drink. Suddenly, Quan's reality is altered and she reappears on John's ship with him. They land in the middle of the desert and return to Mystique's camp, where Reth greets them and announces the start of the war. Quan was shocked when she had to fight John herself. She tries her best, but it's clear that John kills her easily, but it's a vision and her life is just reset so she can try again. Quan tries to fight many times using different weapons, but the result is always the same. Finally, she knelt down and asked him what he wanted, causing John to take off his helmet and give her his hand. John then took her to the desert, where she saw a being that took the form of all her ancestors until he became her father. He apologizes for everything and reveals that there is a special gate here provided by the Madrigal land, so it is Quan's duty to protect it. When Quan awakens, she accepts her role as a new protector and takes the jeep back to the outpost, where she visits her old home. After retrieving some old letters related to the gate, she hears a strange noise. Is Soren, who has returned because he promised John to protect her. At this point, Grath and his men surround the outpost, but Quan has a plan. They can use a tunnel to burn down the hydrogen station and kill them all while they both hide in the bunker. Unfortunately, the pipe must be opened manually, so Quan goes down a secret tunnel while Soren distracts the enemy with open fire before sneaking in to kill the soldiers head-on. Quan arrives at the tunnel and is found by a soldier, so they start fighting and she is saved by Soren, who shoots the guy. They then split up to go to the bunker, and while Soren continues killing people, Quan creates a distraction with an alien grenade. Suddenly, Grath knocks Soren down and threatens to kill him if Quan doesn't get out, but she finds a Spartan weapon and uses it to shoot the water pipe and create a massive explosion. Soren and Quan manage to enter the bunker just before the fire can reach them, but their enemies are reduced to dust. After the rain extinguishes the fire, Soren says goodbye to Quan, who pays him with money she found at the outpost. Sometime later, Halsey and Cortana notice John's health had improved since he connected with Mei-Ki. John takes Mei-Ki for a walk and Mei-Ki explains that the Covenant wants the halo because of a prophecy that says those worthy of it will become gods in the ring. John wanted to know what would happen to the unworthy and was worried when he learned that they would be purified. Their conversation is interrupted when the soldiers take John back to base, where they see reports of all the cities destroyed by the Covenant. 11 million people were killed, so Parangoski said they could no longer wait for the treaty to come to them. John agrees and asks Mei-Ki for permission to use the relic so they can find the second relic and thus the Covenant's base. Later, John visits Mei-Ki to tell her the news. Mei-Ki thanks him with a kiss and they end up having fun in his bed while Cortana watches. Then, after John falls asleep, Mei-Ki decides it's better here than the Covenant, so she removes her spike with a hidden weapon. The next morning, Jacob informed Hasley that Parangoski wanted her to leave the planet by noon. After leaving, Halsey used a special lens and accessed the system to contact Mei-Ki. She explains that the UNSC should not have access to the relics and Halo because humanity will use them to destroy themselves. She also believes that Mei-Ki and John are being used by the government. Halsey swears that she is the only one who can help him, so she wants Mei-Ki to convince John to steal the relic and bring it to her. However, when Halsey mentions awakening humanity's true potential, Mei-Ki recalls the Covenant's speech about becoming gods and hangs up. Refusing to give up, Halsey contacts John's team and after stating that the chain of command has been broken, she activates Z Protocol, meaning the Spartans go offline and only take orders from her. She tells them that John is unwell and cannot be trusted, so they need to capture him, Mei-Ki, and the relic and take them to her ship. Kai doesn't like the sound of it, so Halsey orders the other Spartans to knock her unconscious and handcuff her. At the base, Miranda finishes analyzing some alien sound she received from the ship attacked by Mei-Ki a long time ago and discovers that it is Mei-Ki's voice. Her communication failed because of Halsey's tricks, so she had to run to warn the others. John took Mei-Ki to see the ruins while the Spartans waited at the end of the hallway to attack. However, Cortana took a liking to John and chose to warn him of the trap while disconnecting Halsey from the system. After kicking Mei-Ki out, John stepped forward and fought his teammates, trying to present a fair challenge even though he wasn't wearing armor. Before long, Kai freed himself and joined the battle, fighting alongside John. Meanwhile, Mei-Ki rushes to the relic hall to tell Jacob and Parangoski what happened, but they are interrupted by Miranda, who tells them that Mei-Ki is an enemy. The guards immediately knocked her down and began burning her with their weapons, so Mei-Ki remembered those who hurt her when she was a child and reached out to touch the relic in revenge. Activating the relic will take out the Spartans and guards when Mei-Ki and John appear in the ring. Mei-Ki said goodbye before disappearing. When John wakes up in a daze, he discovers that the entire base has been attacked. Miranda informs him that Mei-Ki has left with the relic, so he rushes to find her, but finds himself stopped by a Spartan who threatens to shoot Kai. John begins to explain that Halsey kidnapped and brainwashed them all, but the Spartans do not believe him until Jacob appears and confirms the story, admitting that he helped his wife. Miranda hears this and is also disgusted with him. The Spartans agree to help John find Mei-Ki while Kai pursues Halsey. Unfortunately, Mei-Ki left in a spaceship, but Halsey was still close enough for Kai to jump on her ship and through the roof. Halsey's assistant hits her from behind, but Kai immediately kills him while Halsey takes advantage of the distraction to escape in the emergency pod. Then the ship crashed near the base, but Kai was lucky to survive thanks to his armor. John then remembered the prophecy in the Covenant and realized it was a clue. Using Cortana, he searches for a planet that resembles shards of glass and eventually finds it, revealing that the lighting effects normally hide it from human eyes. While Team Spartan leaves to retrieve the relics, Jacob's men find Halsey and bring her back to base, where she will be executed. However, Halsey has a seizure and starts bleeding from the nose, meaning she is actually a clone and the real Halsey escaped. Mei-Ki returned to the Covenant and delivered the relics, which would allow the Patriarchs to begin the Great Journey. She asks them to take her with them and they agree, but privately they discuss how they will kill her after activating the relic. Meanwhile, John tries his best to pilot the ship through the new star system, but the ship begins to malfunction and a room catches fire. Kai immediately delayed this while John refused to stop, and after many collisions in space, they finally reach their location safely. The team lands on the planet and easily takes out the guards without raising an alarm since all the aliens are in the temple. When the two relics were placed together, John and Mei-Ki immediately felt each other's presence. John began to feel dizzy and fell from his hiding place, allowing his enemies to see him. The clerics believe that Mei-Ki brought them here and unleashed a huge army of Sangali warriors. A brutal battle begins between the Spartans and the Sangheili. The humans manage to take down some of the aliens, especially John, who defeats many enemies before pursuing his leader. Unfortunately, the aliens are too strong and soon overwhelm him, slowly breaking his helmet. Mei-Qi sees this and rushes towards the relic, touching it to release a wave that attacks most of the alien warriors and pushes them off the cliff. The relic then shines a beam of light into the sky, revealing Halo's location. As the aliens knelt at the site, John approached Mei-Qi, then suddenly appeared within sight of the Halo ring. While he tries to convince Mei-Qi that it's not real and that they need to leave, the other Spartans protect John's frozen body from the remaining aliens, but there are too many of them. Them and the fire was too big. Suddenly, John noticed Mei-Qi bleeding, and when he returned to reality, her body fell to the ground. It turns out Kai had to kill her to save John. The relic disappeared and the Halo map also disappeared, so the Covenant could only see half of it. Soon, the Spartans are overwhelmed by the aliens and all fall, except John, who refuses to leave without the team and relics. To avoid freezing when he touches him, John asks Cortana to take over his body. Cortana refuses because she is not sure she can bring him back, which allows the warrior leader to punch John, sending him flying. He was about to die anyway. Cortana finally agreed to take control of him. With Cortana controlling such a powerful body, the aliens were quickly destroyed within seconds. The leader remained standing, but Cortana remotely controlled the Spartan ship and used it to take down the leader. She then seized the relics and escaped with the other Spartans on their ship. Because there was no first aid box, they treated the wound with fire. Then, when Kai checks on John, the body simply moves the head, letting the audience decide whether he turns around or not. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Shadow or Yang is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. One of the representatives of ancient Chinese kings and nobles, named Shadow, who must bravely risk his life to prove his loyalty to his master. The movie begins with Commander Ziyu, who has just arrived at the king's palace and announced to others that he has challenged Yang Song to a rematch to reclaim the city of Jing, which was occupied by Wanyan Kingdom for the next few years. Lost in a duel with Yang Song, the king of the Pei Kingdom was furious and thought the duel was a bad idea because it would destroy the alliance, but the commander made it clear that it was a necessary action for his kingdom. After the commander left with his wife Xiao Ai, the king told his minister, Lu, that he planned to marry his beloved sister, Qing Ping, to Yang Song's son named Yang Ping to keep the peace between them while also showing them that Ziyu is acting alone. That evening, at the commander's residence, Xiao Ai secretly enters a room connected to a cave, where the seriously injured real Commander Ziyu tries to create a similar wound on the chest of the fake Ziyu, whose real name is Jingzhou. He was deliberately recruited as a replacement commander, known as the Shadow, to retake Jing City. He was adopted by Ziyu's uncle when he was 8 years old because he looked like Ziyu and was trained to be a kind shadow. From then on, Qin Chao wanted to repay him for saving his life 20 years ago. Ziyu promised that he would let Jingzhou see his mother again after the battle was won. Afterwards, Jingzhou and Xiao Ai returned to their residence, where she taught Jing to play the guzheng, a Chinese zither. In the bedroom, the fake commander chose to sleep on the floor because he was not Qiu Ai's real husband. The next day, during an emergency meeting called by the king, the fake commander Ziyu wanted to be beheaded as punishment for declaring war on Yang Song. However, the king refused and decided to revoke his command. Before being sent away, the king asked to see Yang's sword wound on his chest. When the king applied ointment to the wound, he noticed that the wound seemed to be fresh. Ziyu pretended that the original wound had healed and that he had deliberately cut his chest as a reminder of his greatest shame. He declared that the wound would never heal until they successfully recaptured Jing City. Everyone in the room, including the king, believed him and let him go. After the trial, the king mocked Ziyu's self-inflicted act, but his sister considered it an honorable act and accused her brother of being a coward. Back in the cave, Jingzhou continues training with the real commander, who imitates Yang's fighting style to better prepare him for the upcoming match. Unfortunately, Jingzhou, who armed himself with a metal umbrella weapon, was unable to land a single blow on the commander. Ziyu ends the training by showing off the final blow he received from Yang, then becomes extremely angry at his replacement for still not focusing. On the other hand, the king of Pei finally received a response from the Yang family about the marriage proposal. However, Yang Ping offered to take Qing Ping as his concubine. He also gave them his dagger as an engagement gift. There was no doubt that the king decided to accept the proposal, which made Qing Ping extremely angry because she was not informed of the plan at all. General Tian, who considered this offer an insult, finally spoke up, shouting that their kingdom would perish under the king's rule. Outraged by this statement, the king dismissed him from his post. When the general walked out of the room, the king tried to shoot him with an arrow, but he missed. Before the king shot the second arrow, Qing Ping intervened and finally accepted the marriage proposal. Meanwhile, in Qin Town, Duan Thuan tests his son's fighting skills in a duel. After training, Yang Song was impressed at how Commander Ziyu, who was Jing Chu, had fully recovered from his injuries, but his son was optimistic that Pei would not cause them any trouble since the king had just fired his two best warriors. Back in the cave, Qin Chao is ready for the next training session. Before starting, Xiao AI suggested that Jing Chu adopt a gentle and slow fighting style, as the metal umbrella weapon symbolizes yin in Chinese philosophy, associated with water and femininity. Because of yin and yang, she believed it would be more effective against Yang Song's fierce and tough fighting style, which symbolizes yang or fire. Xiao AI directly demonstrates the female fighting style, and it is effective. Ziyu still doesn't believe her and tells her to cooperate with Jing Zhou. Using this technique, the two men also avoided Yang Song's signature move. Ziyu finally realized that it worked, deducing that there was hope of defeating Yang Song. After that, Jing Zhou was fired. In the middle of the forest, Jing Chu, as Commander Ziyu, meets the former General Tian and tells him that he has finally found the winning technique to defeat the Yang Kingdom. He then gave him the flute and ordered him to train hundreds of prisoners recruited by Ziyu. He then took Tian to meet the real Ziyu, where he explained to General Jing Chu his role as a shadow and his plans to become king after taking over Jing City. He also intended to promote Tian to commander if that happened. The next day, Tian begins a training session with the convicts, telling them to use their umbrella weapons with feminine movements to defeat Yang's sword techniques. Meanwhile, Xiao AI, Ziyu and Jing Zhou drink tea together because tomorrow is D-Day of the match and the commander is optimistic about the results. When the two return to the room, Qin Chao admitted to Qiu AI that he was willing to obey the commander for her. Since this is their last night together, Xiao AI decides to sleep with him while being watched through a secret hold by Ziyu. In the morning, Jing Zhou arrived at Jing City, bringing Yin Yang Arena with him, and challenged Yang Song to a duel as agreed. Yang Ping felt something was wrong when he came to town alone. It turned out that Tian and 100 prisoners were waiting on the platform. They secretly dived into the water to enter the city without being detected. At the same time, Tian was surprised to see Qing Ping sneak in between them. In the arena, the duel using the best of three fighting format finally began. The first battle was easily won by Qin Chao. However, Yang Song managed to cut Jing Zhou's chest in the second round and won that round. In the final round, Jing Zhou used her feminine moves to block Yang's signature sword strike, causing the sword to be thrown backwards. Yang reacted quickly, retrieved the sword and launched a counterattack, hitting Jing Chu in the knee. He suggested calling it a draw since Jing Zhou could survive 3 rounds, but he insisted on continuing the duel, meaning it would be a duel to the death. While most of the guards' attention was focused on the duel, the convicts sneaked into the city and began exterminating the remaining guards. They then took out their new metal umbrella weapons and began spinning forward to avoid the incoming arrows while also taking out the defenders with crossbows. Close combat between the guards and the condemned men finally took place. When a condemned man was about to take down Yang's banner, Yang Ping appeared and killed him. A moment later, Qing Ping also appeared and beat him but was then slashed in the stomach. As he walks towards her, he questions his decision to join the fight. He thinks women should cook and do other things at home. As he got closer to her, Qing Ping stabbed him with the dagger she received as an engagement gift, killing him instantly. The banner was then overthrown by Tian and the city of Jing was finally recaptured. In the middle of the final battle, Yang Song was distracted by the falling banner and eventually became angry. As he prepares to finish him off with one of the umbrella's blades, Jing Chu quickly breaks the blade, causing it to slit Yang's throat and kill him. In the evening, Jing Zhou returns to her childhood home in Jingtown to see her mother, but finds that she has been stabbed to death. Suddenly, some assassins appear and try to kill him. Fighting ensued, and the assassins almost killed him until a messenger came to his aid. He then told Jing Chu that he was sent by the king and brought him back to the Pei Kingdom. Meanwhile, the king was extremely shocked when he saw his sister's body. The next day, the king and others celebrated the recapture of Jing City, and the king personally congratulated the fake commander for this feat. At the same time, several assassins, on orders from the king, arrived at Ziyu's residence to assassinate Ziyu's real commander. Back in the hall, the king suddenly dismissed everyone in the room except Lu, Xiao Ai, and Jing Chu. It turns out that the king knew that Lu had been reporting to Yang the whole time and ended his life as a traitor. Surprisingly, the king also knew that Qin Chao was Tunok's shadow and asked him to become the new commander because the king believed that he was loyal and obedient. Just then, an assassin arrives in the room with a box containing Ziyu's head. However, the box was empty and the assassin stabbed the king from behind. He then takes off his mask and reveals himself as Ziyu. Ziyu then provokes Jing Chu by telling him that it was the king who ordered Jing Chu's mother to be killed. He then ordered his shadow to finish off the king to avenge his mother. When Jing Chu searched for the sword, Ziyu intended to kill him from behind, but Shadow was prepared and stabbed Ziyu repeatedly. He then puts his mask back on and drags the dying king's body next to Ziyu's body. He then stabbed the king to death, then deliberately placed the sword in Ziyu's hand. Jing Chu left the room and told the others that the king had been murdered, but he killed the culprit. However, Tian didn't seem to believe him. At the end of the movie, Tu Ai ran to the door and looked towards an opening with an unclear expression. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. Fearless is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe for every update. 10. A longtime ancient Hui Yuanjia is the child of a military expressions ace named Indy. Indy never permits Hua to require portion in preparing, concerned approximately his asthma. The kid, be that as it may, incorporates an enthusiasm for Kung Fu. He tries his best to sneak into his father's classes to memorize the essentials of it. Hua's as it were companion could be a nerdy kid named Jin-sun. He does all of Hua's calligraphy homework, permitting him to prepare instead. Indy is the second best in military expressions in their town, which is before long approximately to alter since he has been challenged by the finest, Zhao. Hua is energized approximately the battle and certain that the triumph will drop to his father's lap. Indy has the upper hand within the coordinate and is approximately to arrive a lethal blow on Zhao, but his convictions and reasonable gameplay halt him from doing so. Taking advantage of his greatness, Zhao strikes back and wins the coordinate dishonorably. Hua is devastated by the occurrence. Zhao's child challenges him to a battle when as it were the kids are together. Hua unquestionably takes up the challenge, but is crushed in no time. At this minute, he promises to re-establish his family's title and be the leading military craftsman in Tianjin. He and Jin-sun go to his father's library and take his book approximately military expressions. At that point, utilizing the book, he trains day and night without rest. When Hua at last considers he is prepared, he challenges Zhao to a battle again. Zhao accepts the challenge unquestionably, but is immediately demonstrated powerless against the prepared Hua. A long time afterward, Hua has developed up to gotten to be even better in military expressions. His father passed absent long prior, together with his spouse, who cleared out him with a small girl, who ruins her since she is his bliss and pride in life. After his final battle with Zhao, Hua has remained undefeated. He has battled a few adversaries, but none of them were great sufficient to provide him a difficult time. Hua has moreover assembled a part of fans and supporters over the long time, but along the way, he has created pride and is beginning to disregard his father's standards. He drinks and parties all the time and lets his followers center on having fun more than practicing. A few days he drinks so much that he overlooks to return domestic to his girl. He has went through all of his family's money and has gone into obligation but has no care within the world. One evening, he goes to his best companion Jin-sun, who is presently an affluent businessman and the proprietor of a famous restaurant. As regular, Hua drinks till midnight and treats his followers to boundless nourishment. Jin-sun's right hand reminds him that Hua has not paid his bills for over a year, which has been heaping up. Afterward that night, Jin-sun tries putting a few cents into Hua. Jin-sun knows that Hua's followers, as it were like him, since he treats them to free nourishment and drinks. He needs Hua to remain cautious of his investing propensities, but Hua considers Jin-sun is fair being miserly. The taking after day, he bumps into his greatest match, Qin. He is the as it were man who hasn't battled with Hua, however. Since he has crushed each opponent, Qin is considered the most excellent in military expressions by numerous. They get into a slight quarrel which harms Hua's pride. He takes his outrage out on his devotees, beating them up while they prepare. At night, one of his supporters has got to be brought to him in a stretcher. It turns out that Qin beat him up for a few reasons. Hua accepts that he did it out of show disdain toward and is filled with outrage. In Jin-sun's eatery, Qin and his family are celebrating his birthday. All of a sudden, Hua Freight chips in with his people and begins drinking at a nearby table. Chin inquires him to keep their contention aside for the night since he doesn't need to fight, but Hua is in no temperament to back down. Jin's son moreover tries to halt him but is, in turn, insult her. In a fit of rage, he breaks up their long-lasting companionship. Presently indeed angrier, Hua challenges Chin to a battle and inquires him to bow down in case he doesn't need to acknowledge. Everybody gets out of the eatery for their security, taking off the warriors alone. They get into a strongly fight, both coordinating in aptitude and quality. But when outrage takes over Hua, he doesn't play reasonable. He beats Chin up till he is depleted and lands a life-threatening punch on his chest. It causes him to kick the bucket immediately. Hua returns domestic within the morning to see his mother's dead body on her bed. Chin's followers had murdered her to require vindicate on him. He cries, mourning her death before abruptly realizing his girl is additionally within the house. Upon strolling into her room, he is met with the greatest surprise of his life. She is lying on her bed, secured in blood. In her hand could be a small pocket that she guaranteed to provide him when he returned domestic. Broken by the passings he caused, Hua steps out of the house when his followers advise him that the man who was beaten up by Chin had insulted his spouse. Chin did not beat him out of show disdain toward but for his wife's honor. Filled with blame, lament, and distress, Hua doesn't see a reason for him to keep living. He sheets the primary transport and lies down in a corner, willing to go wherever it takes him. After living within the roads for 6 months, Hua has sufficient of life. He tries to commit the unimaginable but is before long spared by a bunch of individuals by the stream. They bring him to their tribe and take incredible care of him. But indeed after picking up awareness, Hua goes into discouragement and doesn't talk to anybody. A dazzle lady named Moon takes care of him and is stressed that he will never get up from the bed. Her experienced grandma is sure that he will be fine with time. One day, Moon feels Hua's hair and offers to cut it. He walks for the primary time in a month and goes to a waterway with her where she makes a difference him cut his hair. Beginning that day, he gets to be a part of their community. He makes a difference them cook, cultivate, and do family work. As a year passes, Moon and Hua begin falling for each other. At that point, one day, a kid from their tribe is found taking a bovine from a neighboring community. The grandma and Moon ask for pardoning from the equal pioneer. But according to their convention, somebody who makes a botch ought to be beaten till an incense burns out. Hua speaks up for the tribe and offers to require the beating within the kid's put. For adults, the discipline may be a bit diverse, which implies Hua will need to fight against the pioneer. In spite of the fact that Hua can wrap up him in no time, he doesn't need to use his knowledge to hurt anyone any longer. At first, he doesn't indeed guard himself, but after a small inspiration from the grandma, he begins to avoid the attacks. The incense burns off, but the leader isn't able to arrive a single blow on him. He acknowledges his overcome and acclaims Hua. The following day, Hua, Moon, and the children of the tribe are in the field. The children need to memorize Kung Fu from Hua, but he denies to instruct them. He knows what incredible control does to individuals and needs the tranquil town to stay the same. The children moreover honestly say that Hua and Moon are the closest to each other, but the grown-ups overlook the comment. One day, Moon goes to see her parents' grave. This reminds Hua of his guardians and girl who he abandoned after her passing. Presently that he is in distant better, a much better, a higher, a stronger, and improved a much better mental condition, he wants to return home to visit their graves. He tells Moon about the plan and she happily encourages him. Hua promises to return as before long as he can and inquires her to hold up for him. Within the taking after scene, we see him enter his domestic town Tianjin, which is now on completely diverse put. After the drop of the Qing line, a few solid nations attacked China and took it over. Tianjin got to be mostly colonized, which caused a few outside inhabitants to dwell in the city and impact their culture. Hua goes to his childhood house, which is now an ancient impoverished put. The family servant Laifu invites him in. He has attempted his best to keep things as they were, but after Hua's flight, a bunch of leasers flipped the whole house to search for cash. Hua goes to his family's grave and